We will start right now with meet and greet with local nonprofits, and each representative of nonprofit will share a couple minutes about their mission. And then it's meet and greet. We have wonderful appetizers at the end. We have bathrooms on the back, and this is the time for you to have some decaf coffee, have some cracker and cheese, meet a new person, learn about our local nonprofits. And then at 6:30, we will start with our incredible speaker who will share a message of hope in her story. Does it sound good?
Yeah.
So we will start. So let's see. We have 3 nonprofits represented today. And I would like to start with Cape Cod Path, People Against Trafficking Humans. And if representative from Cape Cod Path could come up. Hello, welcome. And please share about your nonprofit and so that they can see your face and talk to you within this 30 minutes.
Good evening, everyone, and it's really great to see this packed house.
Yes.
Really grateful. Can't hear you. Oh, okay. Is that better? You hear me? Well, hello, my name is Marian Zoldak from Cape Cod Path, and what I said was it's really great to see this packed house. I'm really grateful to be a part of this special session tonight, which is really an opportunity to create further awareness about human trafficking on the Cape. Cape Cod Path is an all-volunteer task force that was formed in 2014, and our mission is to end human trafficking on the Cape through awareness, education, collaboration, and outreach. So this is one of our opportunities to collaborate tonight, as one of our members will be on the panel tonight. We are on a group that would love to speak at organizations. We've spoken with schools, with the hotels and other hospitality industries. We'll speak with hospitals and really groups that have an interest in really learning and understanding the signs of trafficking. So with that, I will welcome our next speaker.
All right.
Please come up. And the flyers and person information will be on the back of the table, so if you would like to stay. Here we go.
Thank you, Ina. Good evening. I'm Marcia Donnelly. I'm Jan Hebner, and we are directors of Treasured Life Initiative, which is an anti-sex trafficking ministry on Cape Cod. And we do some of the same work that PATH does with awareness and training, education, online awareness, training, and awareness for students in schools, for parents, for grandparents. There's such a need for this education because a lot of people still don't realize that trafficking is going on here. They think it's something that happens maybe over in India, etc. So we are really trying to raise awareness that it is happening here on Cape, and we really want to be able to protect, starting with the youth. And you'll hear from the panel, but we know that with boys, the average age is 12, and girls 13, where trafficking is starting, and the online is really a scary part. So that's one thing we're doing. And you want to talk to our safe house?
Sure. Another goal that we have as a long-term goal is, because we've just started last March, so we're not even quite a year old, and we are very happy to report that we just got our 501c3, so we're legitimate. We are very excited about that, but we keep hearing that there's a need for housing for survivors, and there's a need for being able to provide aftercare for when they decide to exit the life. So our goal, which we hope will not be the too distant future, but we know we have to lay the groundwork, is to provide safe housing here on the Cape. We'd like to do it in a twofold measure, where we would have a resting house that would be a 30-day stay for one person, so that they can get reacclimated to just making their own decisions day and night, when to go to the bathroom, not being under control, and just really kind of getting ready to be able to then participate in what would be a long-term program of 1 to 2 years. So those are our dreams that we are dreaming. But we know we have a lot of work ahead of us, and we are very excited to be part of this group and just the work that's being done on the Cape and the networking that's going on. And so we're just excited to be able to participate. Can I say? Thank you. Yeah.
So at the table at the back, you can find our brochures and a little silicone bracelet, and it says Treasured Life Initiative on one side, and Every Life is a Treasure on the other. And inside that is the national hotline number for if a survivor sees that, they can, and they need it, they can call that number. So take as many as you like, hand them out. The other thing is we're very excited about, and it's kind of a little bit in advance, but that's okay. There are cards, postcards, save the date cards on the table at the back, and this is for a walk that we're having, a Not on My Cape walk, and it's going to be on May the 12th, and we invite you all to participate. We will soon have posters available with the online registration, or you can also register at the event. And we have one of the panelists that's going to be here this evening. She is going to be our guest speaker, and we are so thrilled that she is going to be, because when you hear from her, you'll understand why I say that. So thank you, and we invite volunteers to come on board with us. You know, we can't do it alone. We need help from youth, parents, every organizations. We're working together, so we welcome you to come on board with us. So thank you.
Wonderful. Let's give a hand to incredible nonprofits. And I see as people come in, we have 2 seats available, so you're welcome to come in. There are 2 seats. Don't be shy. We are family. We are a community of Cape Cod. I call it like Cape Cod Village. So come on in, make yourself home. And my name is Ina Taylor, and I represent Changing the World nonprofit. And our mission is changing the world one heart at a time. And how do we do it? By inspiring, by informing, by equipping people to change the world one heart at a time. And we do it very often at this wonderful coffee shop that became favorite Cape Cod community hub. And we gather, we connect, and then we change the world. And this is our 3rd human trafficking awareness event. And our next event will be on February 29th, which is leap year. Last day of February, we will have mental health awareness. Because as we learned from Jasmine Grace, last year's speaker, survivor, she mentioned that human trafficking starts with the heart when a person experiences trauma, emptiness, or disconnect to the community. And so mental health is an important part. And you are welcome to come to this event. Also, I would like to welcome our online audience. We have people who watch us from homes. Where do I look at? Over here. Hello, everybody who's watching at home, who's watching from, I know some churches gathered and watching also from church, and you are part of this event as well. And Andrew, as we hear information, there's chat happening as well online. So it's a hybrid event. So as right now, we just started, welcome again. And this is a time for you to use the bathroom on the back and help yourself with refreshments. We have decaf, and meet nonprofits and just chat and get involved with local nonprofits. We are better together. We rise by lifting each other, right? So we will start promptly at 6:30 with our main speaker guest, and we can't wait to hear her. Again, thank you for coming. And we have special guests tonight. We are so honored. We have our wonderful representatives here. Mr. Steve Exaris is here, and Mr. Cape Diggs is here. And he is Republican, and you are Democrat, and they're friends. Isn't that great? Can you give a hug to each other? Okay. And they have a couple announcements before we start with the main speaker.
Thank you, Ms. Inna. Yes, I'm Stephen Exaros. That's Kip Diggs. We're your state representatives. Kip has Barnstable, West Yarmouth, and most of Barnstable. I have some of Barnstable, all of Sandwich, and half of Bourne. So together we represent 90,000 people. And yes, I'm a Republican, he's a Democrat, and we all try to work together to do the right thing. And I just wanted to thank you for coming. And yesterday, ironically, I'm on the committee, the Public Safety Committee, because I was a police officer. So I'm on that committee, and we heard a bill yesterday that I want you to support if you can. It was just introduced yesterday. They testified on it. And what it is it would require the hotels to train their staff to look for this. All right? Because remember, it's not like the old days maybe where they were out on the street doing it. They're doing it in hotel rooms or rentals. And the police officers kind of know it, and they're doing a good job. We have many cases in Yarmouth, right in the motel rooms there. So if we could train the staff to keep their eyes and ears open, and when they see something suspicious, they report it, and you can save a life. So that's a bill that's pending. I'll let Ina know the number, and maybe you guys could support that. I'll turn it over to Rep. Diggs right now, sir.
Hello, everybody. Rep. Kip Diggs from the 2nd Barnstable District. So that's West Yarmouth, Hyannis, Barnstable Village, Centerville, Austerville, Katuitt. I'm honored to be here with you guys and to learn and listen. And, you know, our kids, I think of our kids for the most part. And they're our future. And, you know, for anyone to lose a child. And honestly, that's why I'm a state representative today, is because I lost my son in a car accident. I know it's not trafficking, but it's still a loss. A loss is a loss, and you know, so I can relate. So I'm trying to understand what's going on, how something like this can happen. But so when my son was killed 7 years ago, my community fed me and my ex-wife for 3 months, and I had a meal every single day that was thoughtful and caring. So I was asked, what can I do to give back? I worked for the town of Barnstable at the time, and they said you should run for state representative. When I got elected, I was looking up in the State House next to Steve, and I see a bolt of light, and I see my son. He goes, now that you're here, Dad, get to work. So that's my motivation. So I get up every day working for us. You guys are my bosses. So what you want, I want. So that's basically what we do. It doesn't make a difference if it's the R or the D. If it makes sense, I'm doing it. So that's how I look at things, and I'm available and accessible for you. So I'm honored to be here, and thank you very much.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And that's one of the things that bonds us, besides the same barber. Kip said something very special. To be elected is very special. People put their trust in us. And to end up in the people's house in Boston, we were the first two in the building to get sworn in. And I was sitting next to him when he looked up. I remember that. And I thought of my own son, Nick. Nick was killed in Afghanistan. So we both have sons that were killed too young. They died too young. We know loss. And sometimes that's why people run. A lot of people want to give back and serve, and that's what it's supposed to be about. And we like to also protect. And that's what tonight's about, educating and protecting these innocent people that are being taken advantage of. So check out the bill that I talked about. Please reach out to Kip or I anytime. All right? Yes. Oh, I'm also on the Mental Health Committee. That's a huge issue, right? Mental health, substance abuse, all connected. And we'll have some events on that. And anything like that goes to the state, there's committees that work on that. So I'm on mental health. I'm on the public safety, veterans, and ways and means. 4 committees. Kip?
Speaking of that, I have a bill that I just was also with Chief Frederickson and his wife for people that have been abused, you know, so that when you go to work, you know, maybe we should have a parking spot for you so that it's lit up or it's close to the job so that you can feel comfortable. And it's also going to help your employer. I mean, if you have to go to the doctors or go get a mental health day or whatever, you may not get paid for it, but you're not going to get fired because of it. So that's so, you know, a stress reliever. So not having to worry about, oh my God, I have to do this, I have to do that. So that's very, very important. I don't have the bill on my head, but that's okay. I'm also the vice chair of labor workforce development, and actually I'm the interim chairman because the chair ended up leaving. So that's a great position for me to be in and helping out our community. I'm also on healthcare finance, economic development, and housing. All those things are all so important to the Cape. So that's why I'm here, because basically what Steve and I are basically doing is anything that involves the Cape, we want to be part of. And you can't say that we're not busy because we care of this area. So thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And again, can you believe it? This is January 31st. In February is a leap year. So on last day of February 29th at 6 p.m., register in advance. It will be a hybrid event as well, but we'll have mental health awareness event. And Mr. Steve might be there as a panelist. So right now is a highlight of the night. We have our incredible speaker getting ready to speak. And again, thank you for everybody who's watching us online from their homes, from their churches, and everyone who is here. Thank you very much for being present here. And let's listen to her with open heart and open ears. And all of us need to learn more and more, right? And so let me share a little bit about Robin Levasseur. She's a survivor of 20 years of commercial sex trafficking, domestic violence, homelessness, and drug addiction. Now she shares her journey of hope and survival as a public speaker, advocate, mentor, and outreach specialist. And tonight she has her friend Liz, and she will support her as they share their story of hope. Let's give a warm welcome to Miss Robin Levasseur, please.
Do you mind if I sit? Hi, everyone. How are you? Thank you all for being here. My name is Robin, and I am a survivor of human trafficking, substance abuse, domestic violence, and homelessness. Oh, okay. Speaking to the thing. To make things clear, I've survived things that would have killed most, but my life is a message of hope. God turned my mess into a message. I came from a little bit of background. Came from a middle-class family, a lot of love. I never met my real father, but my mother remarried when I was young, so the dad that raised me was my dad, and he was a good dad. I had 3 siblings, all sisters. I was the oldest. Academically, I was way above my times. I always did well in school. In 7th grade, they put me in 8th grade. I graduated and got into a college preparatory school called Classical. I'm from Rhode Island. And graduated from there, went to Johnson & Wales College. I wanted to do fashion merchandising. But growing up, my family, my dad was very strict because he had 4 girls. So I didn't date a lot. We didn't really go out a lot. I never really had boyfriends, and in my household, you didn't sneak around. Like, listen, there was not, I don't know how kids do it today. They do it, but nah. I'd get caught if I went around the block. And when I did find someone from school or a boy, they'd come over, and my sisters would be sitting there, like, just gawking at them, laughing. It was just ridiculous. Anyways, so when I got to college, here came all that freedom, even though I was still living at home. Consequently, the next year, though, I got talked them into letting me stay on campus, but that was only because of my trafficker. So it was like, oh my God, there's a whole world out here. So, but I was always like the dreamer. I was always in love with love. I wanted my knight in shining armor. And I started to work outside of classes. I worked at a Riccardi's in the arcade downtown Providence. And that's when I met my trafficker. He would come in. He was handsome. He was older. He came in constantly. He'd bring me flowers, brought me to beautiful. Well, after I started seeing him, we were seeing for a while. I was able to talk my parents into letting me stay on campus my second year. And that's when, like, he would be, because I'd still have to be home. Like, I would say, Ma, the party starts at 11, right? Well, you better hurry up because you got to be home by 12. And I'm like, I'm in college. My phone. I didn't shut it off. I didn't shut my phone off, guys. Anyways, so, what was I just talking about?
So you were talking about being in college.
Oh, right. And so anyways, I don't know how I did it, but I was able to let me stay on campus because that's when he started taking me out of state. He'd take me to concerts. He treated me like a princess. I really thought this man loved me. It was like a dream come true. And you gotta remember how naive I was, how, like, I was not sheltered. Like, I knew about things going on in the world, but I didn't know the evils of the world. And I didn't know that there was people out there preying on people, or predators, which I like to call them. That's what they are in my mind, predators. So I had started to begin to miss a lot of my classes, and I wasn't showing up, and I guess my family got wind of it. And my mother's side of the family are all Italian, so they're kind of a little mobbed up in Federal Hill, so yeah, it is what it is. It is what it is. But they're gangsters, okay? And anyways, they went in the street. They went looking for me because they couldn't find me, and it must have got back to the guy that I was with. That her family's in the streets looking for you, and they're gonna mess you up. So I had called home. He made me call home, and I was like, and all like, I didn't like. He had took me to some strip clubs and stuff and was kind of like feeling his way around things with me, but it still never hit me until he got me out of state. That's when, the shit hit the fan, excuse my English. But I all I remember was my mom crying and going, "Oh my God, I can't believe you're prostituting yourself." And my dad going, "When I get my hands on you, you ain't leaving this house till you're 28 years old." Did you not? I was so scared and so ashamed that today I wish, and I talk to a lot of girls and teenagers, and I like to do youth events. Like, that was the worst decision of my life. Like, I wished I would have just went home. I wished I just would have went home. And so I was hysterical crying, and I remember him giving me a drink and a pill. And he said, "Here, take this, you'll feel better, you'll feel better." I took it. The next thing I knew, I woke up, I was in Florida. So he had took me across state lines. And that's when I realized that he was not who he said he was. But I was still in love with this guy. And I still thought he loved me. So he put me to work, through the years. I mean, I lost who I was. I hated who I was. I started using substances, alcohol and cocaine to numb myself because the things I had to do with men and the things I had to do was just disgusting. It was not the person I was. I wasn't raised to be that person. That's not the person God raised me to be. So I numbed myself a lot, but I stayed with this person. There were highs, there were lows. I mean, I even have a son by him. But my son is he's the best thing that ever happened to me in my life. And he's such a good, he's a young man now, and he's amazing. And I have a beautiful granddaughter that are very important to me. Anyways, I went through a lot. Through the years, there were highs and lows. There were good times. It was like, then after a while, you get addicted to the money. I had my own Corvette. I had a Cadillac. I had my own hose. I had a Piaget watch. I had so many clothes in the closet with still had tags on them, diamonds, and like the lifestyle. But then it would get back to the drugs and him beating me, or then other girls. It was just, it was a nightmare, all my dreams of going to college just turned into a nightmare. Anyways, it wasn't until he passed away, because I ended up coming back home years later, and after I had I had my son here in Rhode Island, and I was still with him. He died a horrible death. He really did. He had cirrhosis of the liver. When I met him, he was always drinking anyways. But through the years, I guess he got worse. And so I took care of him till the day he died. And then after that, I was like lost, but all I knew was what I did. So I really didn't. So I went into dancing to make money. I couldn't keep a job anywhere else. I tried. And then I had a substance abuse problem, and at that time I was in denial. Like, you couldn't tell me I had a drug abuse problem. Took me many years before that happened. My son had got older. I didn't even realize it. He was selling weed, nickels and dimes, I guess, but some kids got in trouble, snitched on him. They raided my house. I know I'm all over the place, but I'm just giving you a little gist of what I went through. They raided my house, and they found 3.5 ounces of weed. And so I said, no, I take full responsibility. Everything in this house is mine. I didn't want my son to go to jail because I had a substance use problem. And I wasn't being the best mom that I could be. Between being trafficked and the substance abuse, you truly lose who you are. That's not who I was. I don't know who that person was, but anyways, we both went to jail. They made sure that he went too, even though I took full responsibility, because they said they found some stuff next to his wallet in the room with his name on it. So it took me a couple of years. I stayed in jail for a couple of months. His half-brother had bailed my son out. But this started my road to come back to Christ. You know, growing up, we always went to church. I always believed in God, you know. Only time I had a problem was when my grandfather died. I remember he had a bocce club, and he came all the way here from Sicily. He didn't speak that much English. But on Federal Hill, he had a bocce club in Atlas Avenue. Or was it over there? But anyways, he was coming out of his club one night, and some drunken kids ran him down and killed him. And me and him were like this. He was like my poppy, and I was young. And I remember every day before I went to school, he left me a pack of gum, a dime, and a thing of potato chips every morning. He bought all my friends ice cream. Like, he was the best poppy in the world. And so for a little while, I was mad at God. Like, how could you let that happen? But, you know, we go through that. But I remember praying, God, just please help me stop using. I couldn't stop using. I didn't know what to do with my life. I lost my mother in that time. My mother loved me unconditionally. Even when I came back, she never called me names like some people because of what I did. And she was always, always there for me. And I know she's proud of me now, but she died before I got clean. Anyways, I promised myself that I was going to get better. And so I got connected with the church, and I got a spiritual advisor. I started volunteering there. Well, I ended up going. It's so funny because I was going there. It was a pantry. I didn't want to prostitute no more. I didn't want to dance no more. I was trying to get jobs. I was putting myself into community programs for computer programming and to use the computer. I didn't even know how to do that. Trying to get myself better. In the meantime, I hardly had any income coming in. So I went to a food pantry. And when I went to that food pantry downstairs, they had a little, what do you call it? Where you go, Frag? Like they have they have the little rooms in the hospital. And I got on my knees and I said, God, if you take this desire for me to use, if you take this away from me, I promise you, I will never look back. And that was the day my life changed. I went and got help. I put myself into the Salvation Army. I went back to college. This time I went back and I took social work with concentration in substance abuse. Graduated, took numerous trainings. It wasn't until I met a young lady named Jasmine Grace, which we talked about earlier, that I realized that I was human trafficked. All those years, I beat myself up and said I made a really bad choice. I fell in love with a bad, bad person. You know what I mean? And I used to beat myself up, because how did that happen to me? And how did I allow myself to lose? He took my dignity. He physically abused me mentally, spiritually, emotionally. I was a shell of, I didn't even know who I was when I looked in the mirror. And I hated who I looked in the mirror. And here I have this son that I love more than life. And I was like, I can't. I started going to that church, volunteering. I met up with Jasmine Grace. And when she told me her story, it was almost exactly like mine. And she went, girl, you were trafficked. I went, what? She goes, yeah. She goes, and I said, what do you mean trafficked? I fell in love with a pimp. She said, no. She said, and then I realized he did. He manipulated me. He preyed on me. They look for your weaknesses.
How else did he groom you?
He liked everything I liked. He just treated me like a princess. And then they isolate you too. So he got me away from all my friends and my family, and they just make sure that you're only around them. So where we go from
Yeah, so how did Jasmine help you?
So anyways, Jasmine said, well, why don't you join my ministries? And I went, what? I said, because she knew that I came back to God and my life was about changing my life. I started studying the Bible. A couple of years later, I did Bible studies for 2.5 years and I became a disciple of Christ. But before that, so I went down to New Hampshire, and she has a nonprofit, and she also does Bags of Love, which she distributes, and she got me connected to the New England Coalition Against Human Trafficking. So I worked for them. I started taking all kind of training programs. I got connected with all kind of, after Jasmine opened up doors, I got connected with Rachel Thomas that has out there in, where is it? Can't think right now, but anyways, out in a couple, some other states. I got in touch with Teresa from Florida, all these people that ran all these nonprofits, and they invited me to go on these retreats. I did their training programs. I became a facilitator of programs which can help and educate young girls to bring awareness, and also to do groups where I can help women that want to exit the life. Today, my life revolves around helping other people get to the other side, because there was nobody there for me. Even the police. I didn't feel like I could go to anyone. Even the police made you feel like crap. So I never knew. First of all, I didn't know that that I was trafficked, and I didn't know who to ask for help. I don't know. I was still in love with this guy, but anyways, finally my life started getting better. And I started working for a few nonprofits. I worked with the homeless population. I worked with substance abuse population. I am a volunteer sexual assault advocate, domestic violence, and human trafficking advocate in Rhode Island. That for day one, I go out to the hospitals when they get calls. I've been doing that for 6 years. I volunteer in my church. I do, even without my nonprofit, I do outreach twice a week on the streets on my own time. I don't get paid for it. God, this is my calling. I'm passionate about what I do, helping others. I love to bring awareness events. I love to speak to our youth, because and parents, because today you have to just be so hyper vigilant, and the internet makes it so much worse. I've ran into so many girls that have been duped off the internet to say they were going to do a video or to do modeling, and were taken, locked up against their will, chained to a radiator, shot up with heroin, and millions of guys have came in. Sometimes you don't hear from them. You never see them again. Sometimes they're lucky to get away. But so it is right what Jasmine says. Most people that are traumatized, it's easier for them to fall victim or prey. But that doesn't necessarily always be the truth, because I came from a good family. I was never molested, never beaten, never abused. You know, I mean, sure, it was a little dysfunctional. What family is it? Think about it. You know, we got that one aunt, that one uncle, that one brother, one sister that raises havoc or raises eyebrows. Do you know what I mean? But yeah. So today, my life is just about giving back and helping everyone. But I'm telling you, parents, and as a community, you need to be hyper vigilant around your surroundings, around your children. Just be aware of what's going on around you. You might be able to help a girl in need. I love what Teresa's doing in Florida. She goes to all the Super Bowls and all the big events like the Kentucky Derby. I've been on a couple of her retreats with her, which are amazing. They're all for survivors, all paid. People donate money, and she puts on soaps. She's got the hotline to call if you're being trafficked or you've been, withheld. And they've saved so many people by the hotels allowing them. So yes, I think that's a great idea that they do the training in the hotels. But it's not that, it's a community. We need to be a community and not to turn the blind eye. And please, I can't tell you, there's nothing that they look like. Sometimes it's your neighbor. I had a young lady that I went to a survivor retreat with, a survivor sister. She's amazing today too. Her father was a pastor, and he trafficked her through the church. Okay? So please, it's the people you least suspect. You just need to be aware of what your children are doing. Be aware if something doesn't look right. If they're coming up with jewelry, clothes, they're being secretive. You need to always watch what they do on the internet. I don't care. You just need to be. Like, think about it. We don't even sit. I remember growing up, we all sat down at the table at dinner. We all sat down. You didn't have a phone, and you had to eat what was on your plate. Like, that's what you have. I remember my mother always said, there's people starving in other worlds, which is true. So if you didn't like that liver, you scooped it up with a big bunch of mashed potatoes. But today, the aesthetics and oh my God, like I see families and they're all in other rooms. No one eats together. They don't talk. So they don't know what goes on in their child's day. Like, that time is to sit and talk. I used to do that with my son after school when he'd come home and he'd sleep with me. Slept with me till he was 8 or 9. Anyways, yeah. So, and he would tell me about everything that went on through his whole day. But you need to ask your children these questions. You need to look for the signs. You need to be involved. You need to be. Because if you want to leave your children to fend for themselves out here and think they're going to be okay just because you live in Coventry or Cape Cod, you are sadly mistaken. You are sadly mistaken. Because these predators are everywhere. And they're people some of you know. It's sad. It breaks my heart to see the devastation that it causes, and to see now there's corporations involved. The young lady I met, I went to a conference in Washington, a human trafficking conference in Washington a couple of months ago, and I met a young lady there, a sweetheart. She was being trafficked through an association of lawyers from a firm. They bought off this big cul-de-sac, this real estate, and had all these girls locked up in these estates and was being trafficked. Like, it's just crazy. It's like everywhere you can possibly imagine. And it's in so many different forms. It's not just kidnapped to other states or Don't get me wrong. There are barbaric means of trafficking here. Well, someone will snatch you up out of a parking lot. Don't get me wrong. That happens too. That's why you always have to be aware of your surroundings. I love to speak to college students. I mean, I really want to go into the junior high schools because I think they're younger. I mean, I'm just going to give them clues to look for. Like I wouldn't speak the way I'm speaking here, but to let them know that you just always be aware. And people that you meet, find out who their parents are, where they live, what they do. I never knew this guy's family, never knew what he did. He never talked about that. I never asked, and I didn't bring him home to meet my parents because he was older. You know, and I like to tell the kids, you know what? Your parents, like, I wished I listened to everything my mom and dad told me. But we don't because that's what we go through. We got to learn on our own. But you know what? Like I tell my son now, and he's 32. I've been on this earth 63 years, been around the block and back some. I know what I'm talking about. And if I tell you something, it's because it's so you won't get hurt or it's to help you. You know? Your decisions are your decisions in certain things. But if there's something I think that's going to harm you or my granddaughter, you better not even think twice when I tell you. You know, he gets it now. And my son's been through a lot, but let me tell you something. He is amazing. He is amazing. I regret a lot of things because I wasn't totally present with him growing up. Like, I can see, I've been through therapists, psychiatrists, medical doctors. I can see because of the way I wasn't there. Like, I never ran the streets around him. He never seen me do drugs. But, like, he didn't go to his prom. He didn't have a limousine. Certain things he missed out on. I never taught him about money and stuff like that. So today, he really doesn't know how to budget. But other than that, he's got the biggest heart. He works hard. My granddaughter. A couple of years ago, before COVID hit, I was supposed to do an interview with Channel 10. It was Human Trafficking Month. And so I came to him and I said, listen, they want me to do an interview. I'm going to be speaking on Channel 10. It's going to be about your dad. Because he had a different relationship with his father. He didn't even know none of this. And his father treated him really differently and good. But even though he was an animal, I don't know, but he did do by, for some reason. I mean, to a certain point, from what my son could see, like, he didn't beat him or nothing like that. He treated him, he loved him. When he was little, I remember we would take baths with him. But so my son loved him and looked up to him. He found out years later through something that happened. I won't even go into that. But I said, so you know, I'm going to be talking about your dad, and it's not going to be pretty. And you know what he said to me? He said, Mom, that's not my story. That's your story. You say whatever you have to say to help them girls out there. And I said, God, does it get any better? My blessings, I can't even count the blessings. No, do I have a lot of money? Nope. But what I have is fine. I have peace of mind. I have a beautiful granddaughter that never ever has to know I used, never has to know anything about my past. Me and my son are close. I have my sisters. I lost one of my sisters and my mom and my dad. But I do. Huh?
You're helping others.
Yeah, and today I'm out there on them streets. I get out there and stomp brick in the snow. I bring them jackets. We give out our bags. We do work together in love. So it was funny how I found they were looking for a survivor and I was looking for an agency that was, because I used to work at Day One and I worked at a couple of the agencies, but I think God wanted me to be somewhere where he was all up in it. And Day One, they don't like you speaking about your beliefs. And how can that be if that's my story? So if I'm mentoring a young girl and I tell her how I came to change my life, that my faith was a big part of it. Yeah, are you going to tell me I can't say that? I don't think so. I don't think so. So that didn't work out too well because I still told my story. And eventually, you know, they found out, so they found little reasons. But it's okay. Like Jasmine said, it's okay. God didn't want you there. So it was like, since I became a disciple, it was like 3 years, right? I was like trying to figure out where I wanted to go. So in the meantime, though, I worked for Lifespan as a harm reduction distributor. So I bring harm reductions out to the streets. I bring Narcan, clean needles, fentanyl test strips, things like condos to the girls. I still believe in harm reduction. Even though I think recovery is like getting clean, but I just meet people where they're at. And if they're ready, I will take them to a detox, a hospital, or connect them to resources they need to be connected with, whatever their issue is. Because most of the girls out there, they do use substances also. It's like an onion, you peel back the layers. So anyways, my spiritual mentor, her daughter, was with an organization, it's called Together with Love, which is now our organization. It's a nonprofit for human trafficking, where we go out and we bring toiletries and we bring awareness to the community. And she told me about them, and for 3 years they was looking for a survivor. So we got together finally, we connected, and then after that we got our 501k to become a nonprofit. So you know when God works, because it's easy. Like, and today I just want to bring all this crap to the light. See, the devil can't work in the dark. I'm not trying to get religious, but this is who I am. And so when you bring awareness and you tell people and you talk about things and you mention stuff to your kids and you mention things to others, and if you see something, if you see a young girl with an older guy or with a guy and she looks like she's got her head down, and like, look for signs. If it just doesn't look right, usually go with your gut. That's why God gives us the Holy Spirit. Go with your gut, and even if nothing comes of it, at least you know you did your due diligence. Like, I'd be able to sleep at night knowing that maybe I helped someone or I saved someone, instead of, oh no, the next person will do it. Oh no, I'm just probably thinking crazy. No, just today in this world, it's not. You'd be surprised. That's stuff that goes on right under your noses. You know? Time. Okay, so I think that's my time. And I just really want to say thank you for listening to my story. And thank you for being here and caring. You're welcome. Thank you.
It takes a lot of courage to share stories.
Careful.
God
Careful
made us
from
to be
the-
courageous.
Let's give another round of applause. Robin, it's just the beginning for you, and thank you again for sharing your heart and your story. Now it's time for us to transition to our panel, and thank you for being so wonderfully comfortable being here. I know some of you standing, but it means that you're here with the purpose to learn and to educate yourself. So thank you again. And tonight I would like to, our panelists, part of panelists, please come forward. We have Robert Galibois. He's a Cape and Island District Attorney. Let's give a hand to a wonderful public servant. We have Vanessa Madge, the Chief of Child Protection and Human Trafficking at the District Attorney Office. Welcome, welcome. We have Reverend Catherine Boyle, survivor and speaker here. Let's give a hand. And she was a speaker at the event recently, and she had a standing ovation. And we have Katie Parache, Barnstable, Parache, thank you so much. It's my Ukrainian accent. Katie Parache, Barnstable Police Detective. And take a look, we have wonderful women represented here. And if I would meet you randomly, I would not think that you're a detective, And I would not think that you're doing such a. One more time, I want to say thank you for all that you do, for being here, and thank you for your time. And we have a couple questions prepared. So number one question, and again, we will go one by one. And if you have a comment or remark to make, please feel free to do that. So first question is, how would you describe the current state of human trafficking in the USA and specifically in Massachusetts, and since we are here in Cape Cod? And what are the statistics, if you know of any? If you volunteer to answer this question, please raise your hand. Maybe Mr. Robert Galibois would like to start, because we will share microphones. Or Miss Katie? Miss Vanessa?
I think Detective Parache has some statistics to start us off with.
Okay.
And say hi to people who are watching us. I was just seeing that we have quite an audience online as well.
Can you hear me? Oh, it is working? Yes, okay, sorry. It's okay, I can talk louder too if need be. So as far as like current state of trafficking, that's kind of it's a big question. And so if you ask me, I'm always gonna say, well, we need to investigate it more, we need more awareness, we need more outreach. But as far as like just some statistics for you, there's a lot of reasons why it's difficult to pull statistics, because a lot of times it's very underreported, or it's reported as other crimes, or it's not prosecuted even though it's investigated. And in those cases, they're not gonna come up with a pullable statistic. But just so to give you some rough statistics from the Polaris Project, these are 2021 numbers, and by the way, go to polarisproject.org and you can pull all the statistics too. They have a really great report. It's very lengthy, so I just highlighted a few pieces of information I thought would be of relevance for our Cape Cod community. So included in that report that the majority of victims are recruited into human trafficking by somebody they know, whether that's a family member, a caregiver, an intimate partner, or an employer. So the idea sometimes that human trafficking, it's a stranger, a group of people that don't know the victim, is actually not true. That as far as what has been helpful for survivors to get help, and what they consider access points, or interaction with family and friends is the highest rate at 43%. Interaction with law enforcement or somebody else in the criminal justice system, 23%. Access to healthcare services, access to mobile apps and social media, and access to general social services. Those are the top 5 access points for survivors. So according to the 2021 statistics, there was over 10,000 trafficking situations that were reported to the Polaris Project, and they identified over 16,000 individual people being trafficked.
In the United States.
In the United States, yep. So that's some of the statistics. I know Vanessa has some local ones.
All right, can everyone hear me? Okay. So my name is Vanessa, and I'm with the Cape and Island District Attorney's Office. I am Chief of the Human Trafficking and Child Protection Unit. And so, as you're going to hear more about later, can you hear us?
Can you hear me now? The microphone. Closer to the microphone.
How about now? Okay, thanks. So as you're going to hear more about, we were kind of trying to assess what is the state of human trafficking here on the Cape. And so a couple months ago, we kind of did a little bit of a needs assessment. And we looked at our own in-house records, like how many cases have we prosecuted? And so DA Galibois just took office recently, but we did look at a few years in the past. And so in the past 3 years, we had 58 human trafficking cases. And so what does that mean? Well, as Detective Parache said, it's completely underreported. It could come in, perhaps it comes in as a domestic violence call. Maybe it comes in as a disturbing the peace call. Maybe it comes in as a trespassing call, and so it's not categorized correctly. So all we can say in the past 3 years, we had 58 what we categorized as human trafficking. Importantly, in between 2022 and 2023, we had a 31% increase in cases. So what does that mean? That means that our office is paying more attention. Law enforcement is paying more attention. We're seeing what else is out there. The community is paying more attention. More is getting reported to us. So I wanted to highlight those statistics. Also, as Detective Parache said from the Polaris Project, they highlight the most forms of trafficking are now online. So that's where most people are getting recruited. That's where most of it is happening. And as she said, it's usually by somebody they know. And you're probably going to hear more about in this situation and this topic tonight. It's often by a family member. It might be someone as that pretends to be your boyfriend or is involved in a significant relationship, or it can often be sometimes that people will use, besides a relationship, substance abuse. And obviously it can be combined. But the number one triggers we see are relationship, substance abuse, or a family relationship. And so I hope that community events like this raise awareness so that people look around and see maybe it is happening and what we can do to help and what we can do to report it.
And speaking of awareness of human trafficking, have we increased in our awareness of human trafficking in Cape Cod, Massachusetts, and United States?
I'd like to take that one, if possible.
Yes,
Thank
yes,
you.
please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Rob Galibois. I am, I guess, the new DA. I've been in office now for a little over a year. Before I get into some remarks about that, I do want to talk a little bit about Detective Parache and ADA Vanessa Madge. Detective Parache, of course, is an officer with the Barnstable Police Department, so you would think she would investigate Barnstable cases, but she's so well skilled and experienced in human trafficking cases. Departments across the Cape and the Islands look to her to help lead their particular investigations. And well beyond that, Homeland Security, a federal agency, looks to Detective Parache to build their federal cases. She didn't tell you that during her presentation because she's incredibly humble, okay? But I want to let you know the rock star that's sitting before you right now, and I honestly mean that. My head of human trafficking in my office, Vanessa Madge, she came to me, and I'm going to explain a little bit more about this in a minute, from the Attorney General's office, where she worked in the human trafficking unit and prosecuted cases across the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. So she, in her own right, is also a rock star, and we're very lucky to have her. Now, I'm the new kid on the block, honestly, and I don't even know, humbly, if I deserve to be up here. But I do want to share a little bit of historical context about human trafficking in Cape Cod and the DA's office as long as I've been in office. I sat out here January of last year, and I had been in office about 2 weeks. I came into the office and we started exploring, like, what can we do to maybe, strengthen some of our efforts in certain areas, and human trafficking certainly was mentioned. And I don't think it was really too much of a secret. There wasn't a lot of focus at that time when I came into office. So I learned about the event that you were hosting last January. I came in. I would say there was probably about 60% of the people that are here now, certainly not standing room only. So this is incredibly inspiring in 1 year, what you've been able to do. So thank you very much for that. And when I walked in, I saw a big strapping man in a uniform, Chief Scott McDonald from the Orleans Police Department. And we might have been the only two men in the room that particular night. So a couple days after that, I went down to his office in Orleans. And we began talking a little bit about how we shared an interest in trying to combat human trafficking. And Scott's mission at that particular time was to try to organize all of the local police departments on the Cape to designate a representative from every single police department to this particular issue. And that's, that's a little bit of a Herculean task. So on my end, I try to develop awareness as best as I could. So I met, of course, with the gurus, Cape Cod Path ladies, that are just rock stars themselves as well. And they came into my office. And we decided we were going to try to develop a little bit of a human task force, civilians in our office, to try to promote awareness. So that meeting led to another meeting where we were joined by representatives of Independence House showed up, Health Imperative showed up. What's their name? What is it? Treasured Life. Treasured Life showed up. And again, some law enforcement officials showed up. And we've now had 4 such meetings in the past year, so it's beginning to grow. I then reached out to my state legislators. You've heard from two here today, Representative Diggs and Representative Exaros, who might be in the back. And I explained how I wanted to make this a focal point of my administration. At some point, I'm going to walk off the stage, either involuntarily or voluntarily. And when I do, one of the legacies I hope to leave behind is the efforts that we made as an office on this specific issue regarding human trafficking. So to do that, of course, you need money. So I reached out to our legislative delegation, and I explained, we need some funds to try to meet some goals, and they delivered. They gave us a little bit more money than the previous year, and with that money, I went to Vanessa, and I tried to convince her to leave the big city to come down to Boston and help us with our efforts, and thank goodness she agreed. So then what happened? We then started to look around, how can we acquire more money to do two things? Promote awareness, which has been a topic tonight, and of course, prosecute the offenders. So what that means is we try to supplement our funds by applying for grants. Now, this is a secret that I ask everyone here hold on to for a couple days. I'll put you in the know a little bit. But we were successful in getting a grant just shy of $100,000 that we're going to be doing a formal announcement next Monday.
Wonderful. And it was on Cape Cod Times on Monday.
It was leaked a little bit. And that money is going to go a long way to certainly promoting awareness, and Vanessa can speak to certain specifics about that, as well as prosecuting. So again, please keep in mind, this is probably the only time I'm going to speak tonight, because there's tremendous experience up here, and you should hear from them, not from me, but I wanted to provide a little bit of historical context to the efforts to promote awareness and prosecuting from our office. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. There is a Cape Cod Times article that came out on Monday. You can search it online. If you search Human Trafficking Awareness Cape Cod Times, you will see more specific numbers about those grants. Okay. Question to Katie, because you're the most knowledgeable, I think, to this question. Could you describe to us the whole chain of human trafficking from the moment of grooming the victim to identification and rescue?
So I think when we talk about like how human trafficking occurs, it is important to understand that it's not linear, and there's no one method that people are trafficked. There's no one method that people are recruited. So the process can be instead of me talking about it in a linear fashion of how it happens, let's just talk a little bit about some of the things that traffickers do to victimize. So a trafficker is going to find somebody that's vulnerable. Vulnerability can be anything. It's not just economic vulnerability. It's not just status vulnerability. Any person in this room can be vulnerable. Think about yourself. Think about people that you know. What could somebody exploit? So a trafficker will know when meeting people, regardless of the forum, they're going to know and they're going to look to exploit your vulnerability. And that's going to start the recruitment and grooming process. And understand this too, that this process could take months, it could take years, or it could take an hour. There is no one set amount of time that traffickers use to groom their victims. Every person is different. Every situation is different. So a trafficker may be able to identify a person that's vulnerable and know exactly how to exploit that vulnerability in an instant, or they may take months. We talked a little bit about like family members, that vulnerability, that might happen right away because that's your caretaker, that's your parent, and you have to do what they say. Or maybe it's a family friend. So the grooming process may take years, and it may be giving special attention. So after the person is groomed, in whatever form it may be, whether it's sex trafficking or labor trafficking, there's a period of isolation. And isolation is not just physical isolation. Isolation could be physical, but it can also be emotional. Instilling fear, instilling shame, making sure that victims do not feel free to get help, making sure that victims don't see themselves as victims, making sure that victims don't talk. I don't like to say, and I don't like to use the word rescue because I've never rescued anybody. I've had conversations with people that have really inspired me, and we've been able to conduct investigations through that process. But again, it's not linear. And sometimes I'll speak to the law enforcement end where we identify a victim. We identify them in that situation, and we think, law enforcement, you are free. I have saved you. You can now go. Let me help you. And then we do see that there's a recidivism. It seems simple enough that, okay, well, now that it's been identified that a person in that situation would then leave, but that's not that simple, and we talked about that before, right? That isolation process is not just physical, so regardless of interaction from law enforcement, the educational system, the healthcare system, it does not ensure that that victim is going to be able to then self-identify and then even have the tools to be able to leave. Because that process is so instilled, it's so ingrained, and it is so complex. And that's another thing that it's important to understand with human trafficking and why it's so high of the recidivism. It's very similar to domestic violence cases where on average it takes about 7 times for a victim to have an interaction that could help identify them or help them to get out, for them to be able to even get out. And so that's kind of the bare bones and like circular process of victimization. There are other things that traffickers do, but that's the majority of what we see.
Thank you. That's an eye-opening information right there. Reverend Catherine, thank you for being here. And again, thank you for sharing your story so boldly. You had an experience of human trafficking. And if you can briefly perhaps share, and the question to you, how can regular citizens like us, all of us are caring here and making sure that our community is safe. We would like to know how we can get involved in spreading awareness or otherwise addressing the issue of human trafficking from your perspective.
Thank you, Ian. You can hear me. Ooh, last Wednesday the mics were not working. I'll try and be brief, but you're asking a pastor to be brief. You know what that means. So
preach it.
No, I'll be short, I hope. My journey into trafficking started with my dad. I grew up in a cow town where there were more cows than people, at least back then. And my dad, well, you know, small towns, everybody knows everybody, but for those of us who are boomers and older, we all know that we grew up with MYOB. Mind your own business. You knew that your friend was being beaten by her alcoholic mother. That was my neighbor. And I went and told my mom, and she says, yes, but we mind our own business. And that's why in our generation, when it did happen, yes, it did, that's why no one knew. My dad, when I was little, he was a police officer, and I have to say, I deeply respect police officers and those in law enforcement, district attorneys. My mom worked in the Haverhill Courthouse. So there you go. And I was 3 years old when my dad started trafficking me. He brought me into a house. He went off with the woman. I went off with the man. And a lot of people, they ask you, well, why didn't you say anything? Why didn't you do anything? I was 3, first of all. But second of all, the grooming starts. I was in a room above the garage with this man, and he had this, to me, a 3-year-old, any dog is huge. But if I started to cry or I started to scream, he'd make the dog growl. And that would tell me real fast, shut up. So I tried not to cry, and you know, they really groom you. Don't cry, don't say nothing. And so crying is hard as you get older. It's only the Holy Spirit that can make me cry most of the time. At 4, my dad was sexually abusing me. I told him to stop, or I was going to tell Mom. Well, he went and got a service revolver out of the top drawer. I didn't know until I was 15 that he didn't put bullets in there. But I was 4. I thought there were bullets in there, and he played the Russian roulette. Oh, so you're going to tell? Click. You sure you want to tell? Click. And I was petrified. And then he told me something that I didn't understand. He said it was my fault because I was seductive. I had no idea what that word meant. I was 4. But I knew it's your fault. I knew what that meant. And he kept grooming with that. Kept grooming. At 9, I was told that I was only good for one thing. I tried to tell again at 9 because he came in when I was taking a bath and he tried to molest me, and I said I was going to tell, and he held my head underwater until I couldn't breathe pretty much, and then he said, "You're going to tell? You're going to tell?" And then the other part of grooming, if you tell your mother, how do you think that's going to make her feel? You're going to hurt your mother in that way? And so another reason I kept quiet is I didn't want to hurt my mom because she was my strength. She was my everything. And then early in my teen years, when there were other men that used to come to the house, they would threaten my friends. If you don't do this, then we will find your friend Meredith. We will find your friend Pam. We will find your friend Lane, and we'll hurt them. And so what I would do is I would go to school and I would pull away from them for a couple weeks or a month. They never understood, but that's why. And so you're groomed. You're groomed to think it's your fault. You're groomed to think that if you tell, someone's going to get hurt. And all the while, you're not thinking, hey, I'm the one getting hurt here. I'm the one that needs help. And when your dad used to be a police officer and everyone knows him in town, and I was what you call a brooker. Did anybody grow up in the Haverhill area or eastern New Hampshire? Then you'd know what that is. I'm a brooker. And so I was made fun of in school. That didn't help either. And so no one would really listen to me because I'm a brooker. So it wasn't until I was 18 and I was a week and a half before I was going to go to college, and I had some phenobarbs in my hand that was prescribed by one of my abusers. Thank you very much, my new doctor. And I was ready to take them and end it all because I hated my life. And all of a sudden, I felt this urge to read something I hadn't read since 2nd grade. My mother's best friend used to take me to church, and I had a Bible. And I opened it up, and because I'm a boomer and I'm anti-establishment, I started in Revelation instead of Genesis. Wow, that's eye-opening for a kid. And I got to, behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hears my voice and opens the door, I will come in to him and sup with him and he with me. And I knew what God wanted. He wanted my life. But because my dad was an authority figure and God, God the Father, I was like, maybe not yet. So I went away to college, and I wanted a safe club. And I picked Christian Fellowship. And the leader shared the 4 laws. Some of you know what that is. And to be honest, I was like, okay, God loves me, that's nice. Yes, I know I'm a sinner because I'd really like to do some nasty things to these people that hurt me. Okay, I admit that. And then he got to Revelation 3:20. And I was like, wow. And on August 22nd, 1974, I gave my life to Jesus. And then people started saying, and you have to forgive people who hurt you. Wait a minute, stop. But yes, I did. And I can honestly say that I forgive all my abusers, my dad, everybody, all the kids that bullied me, because God has done an amazing healing in my life. So what can you do? The average Jane and Joe Schmo on the street, what can you do? Educate yourselves. Definitely, it's a hard topic, okay? It's a hard topic, but but you've got to. You've got to protect your kids. You've got to protect your grandkids. You've got to protect your neighbors' kids. And as I said Tuesday night, tell your friends, tell your family, tell your children, tell your neighbors, grab a tourist on the street gently and tell them whoever you want to tell them what's going on. Because I'm sorry, yes, this is idyllic Cape Cod, salty air and sandy beaches, la la la, hear the tune, but it happens here. Now, I want to speak to church people. You know there's a church phrase, parents are the law and grandparents are the grace. You know that, right? Grandparents, with this, you have to be the law. You absolutely have to be the law, and parents too. You are not their friend, you are their protector and their parent. Protect them. So, how can you protect them? Become aware of all the apps they have on their phone. Educate yourself. There are apps that hide apps. There's a calculator that gives porn. It's hidden behind the calculator. Really? Yeah. You've got to know these things. Know which apps are dangerous. Know if they're on your kid's phone. Know how to get into hidden apps and where they are hidden on the phone or the iPad or wherever they want to hide them. And know the sites they visit. Know who their friends are online. Know their families of their friends. Get to know the parents. Know who's hanging around sports events, around schools. Keep an eye open. Shared Hope has a lot of free, I gotta emphasize that, free resources. So does Cape Cod Path. So do many organizations. But the one I love for parents is Shared Hope. They have free webinars, they have free information on their website to teach you how to know about these apps, to teach you how to talk to...
SharedHope.com or Shared Hope?
Sharedhope.org, I believe. Yep.
Andrew will put it up on the website.
And churches, if you want to start a trafficking ministry, I have a book for you. And I want to emphasize that you really need to read this book before you start a ministry. You know, we are really, really good at church dinners, right? Really good at church dinners, and too good at church dinners in the church. And we are really good at what I call one and done events. We go out, we help the homeless on a Saturday, we do this on a Sunday, we do this on a Monday. But if you're going to do an anti-trafficking ministry, one, it has to be sustainable. It cannot stop. And number two, you have to collaborate with the police, and you have to collaborate with other groups. It cannot be just you and your church. I think we're getting out of that since the glory of God on Cape Cod, that we're starting to work together, and that's a great thing, but we need to do more. So here's the book. Are you ready? It's an excellent book. Ending Human Trafficking, a Handbook of Strategies for the Church Today by Moore, Morgan, and Yim. And it teaches churches how to take assessment of what they can do in their church, and if it can be sustainable or not, who they need to collaborate with and when. One of the stories in the book, it opens with this one, is these authors are meeting at an anti-trafficking event in Texas, and they're saying around the table about the problems that they have. And one of the police officers says, yeah, those church people, they're always getting in our way. Doesn't that scare you? We need to collaborate with the police.
Yes.
We need to not be in their way.
Amen. Amen.
So once again, Ending Human Trafficking, a Handbook of Strategies for the Church Today. And if you're really, really brave, here are some statistics for you. According to the National Runaway Switchboard, 1 out of 3 teen runaways will be recruited into sex work within the first 48 hours from their leaving home. Does that scare you? It scares me. The McCain Institute, I'm losing my voice, reports that there's an estimated 10,000 sex trafficking victims flooding the city hosting the Super Bowl, which this year is in Las Vegas. 10,000, and not all of them are adults. In fact, many are not adults. You can sign up for training for the Big Search. The Big Search volunteers go into the cities before the Super Bowl. During the Super Bowl, they're trained how to look for runaways in that area, children that are missing. And they've found children. They have actually found children. So if you want to be really brave, sign up for the Big Search. And please do not suppress what you've heard tonight. Become involved.
Let's give a hand to Ms. Rebel. Mr. Robert, one of the last questions I have, what does the future look like regarding tackling human trafficking, legislative improvements, innovations, technology, like a lot of people are concerned about border, and cameras on border, or hotline, or call website, or report suspected trafficking, or for those trafficked or in risk of being trafficked?
I think, can you hear me? It's working? Yes. I think the future is looking good in terms of efforts to promote awareness and prosecute offenders. I am well aware that there's pending legislation right now endorsed by My Life, My Choice in regards to human trafficking efforts. Locally here, as I shared with you all of you earlier, we are trying to increase our abilities to put it out there what human trafficking is all about, just how prevalent it is across the Cape. And again, Vanessa is a tremendous rock star, but I would like to get her some help and get her another assistant district attorney to work alongside with her. And I'd like to do what I can, working with Chief Challies from Barnstable PD and the other police chiefs to supplement their income so they can get more detectives on the ground to conduct the investigation. So candidly, I think just in the past year, our office has taken great strides. And this is Exhibit A right here, right now, going as to awareness. I mean, again, there's at least 30, 40% more people here tonight. This is awe-inspiring. So thank you for coming.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And the last question, I would think it would be to Katie and to Vanessa. What does the role of nonprofit communities, churches play in tackling human trafficking? Do you think it's an important role?
Absolutely.
And what we are doing, it doesn't matter?
Absolutely. I'm sure Detective Parache will completely echo me in this. Yes, the role of nonprofits and the church is incredibly important. Prosecution is one part of solving the problem of human trafficking. Obviously, as a prosecutor, I want to hold the offender accountable. But at the end of this, there's a person, there's a survivor, there's a thriver, someone who has to go on and live their best life. And so nonprofits and the church are hugely important for that. You know, once you take a survivor out of that situation, once they're ready, they probably need housing. They need a way to earn some money. They need a support system. And as a prosecutor, I can't do that, right? So the nonprofits are hugely important. The grant that DA Galibois talked about, what the money that we wrote for and we were granted, and you're going to hear way more about it, is that we partnered with nonprofits. We partnered with nonprofits to bring more support services to survivors of human trafficking on the Cape. You're going to hear from nonprofits on Monday that are receiving parts of these funds in order to expand services for survivors looking to leave the life, both for the adolescent population and for the adult population. So nonprofits are hugely important. And if eventually there is a prosecution, which obviously I want to hold that offender accountable, the survivor is going to be in a better place to testify if they have the rest of the supportive services to move forward with their lives. So collaboration is important. We want the nonprofits to work with the police and the DA's office, but we want to work with the nonprofits because it's a holistic approach in order to tackle this problem.
Thank you very much. And Vanessa?
I absolutely agree with what Vanessa said, and now I'll share a little bit my own story. Part of the reason why I work with Cape Cod Path, and I have been for, oh my goodness, I don't even remember, many years, is because the work of the nonprofit is so important. Ideally, like Vanessa said, I want to get the bad guy. I want to get the people that are perpetrating these crimes. I want to hold every single person that has victimized somebody accountable in every aspect. But unfortunately, that's not always realistic. I also care about survivors, and I know sometimes what's best for a survivor is not going through the court process. And it's very counterintuitive, especially being in law enforcement, to be able to take a step back and say that my primary focus has to be what's best for that survivor. And nonprofits, they have been doing this work long before there were laws in Massachusetts against human trafficking. So the role can't be understated that nonprofits play in the fight against human trafficking and helping survivors to thrive. It's hugely important. I could not do the work that I do without it.
Thank you so much. Let's give a round of applause to our wonderful committee. And I lost time. What time is it? Whoa, 7:37. Okay, so it's good. We have some time. As we say it again.
We got time for snacks.
Again, I'm so thrilled to see so many people and such a high interest and a lot of people watching us online. And perhaps we have a question or a concern or remark from the audience. I see some students represented here and some activists in our community. If you have a question or a concern to our panel, this is your time before we end up. Okay, Ms. Judy, she is one of the board of Cape Cod Community College. Do we have a remote microphone? Speak up loudly.
Oh, don't worry about me, I'm Portuguese. Okay. I find some of the language interesting in regards to choose to exit. It makes it sound like there are people, like it's a choice. I mean, is it ever really a choice?
No.
What's the saying?
Is it a
Freedom of movement
choice?
does not mean freedom of choice. Freedom of movement does not mean freedom of choice.
And secondly, what happens, what are the efforts, proactive efforts for more of an extraction? Is there work going on in that area?
What are the efforts for extraction from human trafficking?
So you see it happening, the person doesn't choose to leave, but it's happening. So what is being done in that area proactively?
Was your second part with NGOs, or was it for law enforcement, or both?
In general.
So I can speak to what I do and what we do collaboratively is having conversations, making introductions, being available. I can tell you that I have spoken to people, and you have to go into the situation with no expectations and no motives. I am here for you. I would like to help. I would like to discuss. I'm interested in what you have to say, and no matter what, you matter to me. You don't have to talk to me. You don't have to cooperate, but this is who I am, and if you want to talk, you can find me. I've had people come to me 4 years later because they remembered me. So as far as like extraction, it's a good word, but it's not something, I don't go into situations and extract. There are major operations that they do that are specifically designed at like extraction, where we have identified child victims, and that's a larger operation. But I think on the day-to-day with everybody here, when we talk about how can you be effective at influencing a person to, first of all, be able to identify that they are being victimized so that they are ready to be able to leave. Because I can go up to any person and say, hey, there's services available, there's things available, let me help you. If they're not ready to receive that, they're not ready to leave. It's important for us to just have that open door.
Can I just add something real quick?
Yes, please.
So I do a lot of outreach on the streets to answer your question to that. And it's just meeting people where they're at. You know what I mean? Maybe not today, but they see you. They keep constantly seeing you and seeing you that you care. That's why I make sure I do outreach so many days a week. And what days, I try to keep it on the days that are certain. So them girls know when to look at me. I also give them cards and numbers. But when they see you continuously and they're ready, then that's when you can work. Like with her, just keeping that door of communication open, you know, because I didn't even realize I was being trafficked. I didn't know there were people out there that could help me. I didn't know if it would work. I definitely know the cops at that time I thought were my enemies because they treated me bad. Not that I love cops, don't get me wrong, my sister was a cop. I'm not saying that, but at the time, even law enforcement was my enemy. So, and I didn't trust people in the streets only because of everything else. But it's just meeting people where they're at and just knowing, and then eventually you can save someone.
Trust is a big issue, a huge issue.
Because I've been there, so a lot of
Exactly. I was a depressed 9-year-old. And it was like, oh, that's just Kathy. That's just the way she is. You lose hope, despair, depression, hopelessness become a part of you. And trust, no. So, I mean, it was my father, hello, it was a doctor. It was my father's friends who we visited at the country club with my mom, and later when she would go out, they would come to the house. So, and I grew up in a well-to-do family, but it's that trust. You've got to build trust. You've got to be able to slowly but surely communicate there is a way out. There is hope. There is something beyond this. Like you, I didn't know the name Trafficked. I just thought this was going to be my life. And while other kids were dreaming of Disney World and being on the Red Sox team, yeah, I would like to do that too because I love baseball. But I was having nightmares of men chasing me as a little kid all the way up through when I came to know the Lord, and then he started healing me, and those are gone. Those are gone. But it's the trust, it's the hope, it's getting over the despair, because that's how you live when you're trafficked.
And I will take last question. If we have question on the back, you can come up forward, Cheryl. What I've noticed too, Kathy and I have experience working with J1 students, young people who come from overseas for work and travel program. A lot of them are vulnerable and young, and it's so important to create a safe space and community where they know that there is a hotline, and U.S. Embassy does a good job providing information. But again, community, safety, numbers, nonprofits where they could come to. And everybody's vulnerable. In Cape Cod, vulnerable population is children, is immigrants, international students, those who possibly legally are vulnerable. I personally encountered people who do not have status in America, and as the result of desperation leads them to giving their passports, their identity. Kathy and I encountered J1 students being manipulated by their employee and their landlord. The landlord took the passports away and said, I have a right. You cannot leave, you cannot speak, you're nobody. So things like that, and because they're foreigners, they come from countries where police is not a friend and any legal representation is not a friend, so they don't have courage to speak up. Until me coming from Ukraine, former Soviet Union, I could speak to their language and say, you can call police, they're friends, that's okay. please do. So things like that. So Cape Cod seems to be a safe place, but we do have a vulnerable population here, and we have to watch out for those who are vulnerable as a community. Cheryl, your question.
Yes, thank you. So, Pastor Kathy, my heart broke hearing how little you were, and you grew up in a home that seemed typical on the outside or normal. You weren't part of the vulnerable population, but you were a vulnerable child. And I've worked in education, I've worked with little children, and there are times when the trauma, they can't focus, so you see there's trauma of some sort, and there's sometimes a hesitation to get it, like, how far do you go? So what do you recommend? I mean, okay, let me just back it up for one moment. I was thinking, did any adult ever try to reach into your world to offer hope, and did they ever recognize your need?
There were my friends who one day I went to high school with 2 black eyes because I didn't want to do what the guys wanted me to do. And so I got slapped in the face, but remember, MYOB, but they kept pressing me all day long. Nancy and Barry, are you okay? You know, if you see kids with bruises in strange places, if you see kids starting to trigger over a loud noise, if you see kids starting to withdraw from their friends, which is what I did, you need to start not asking questions because they'll back away from you, but just be their friend. Be their friend. And then eventually, when they think they can trust you, then you can say, you know, I noticed, is everything okay? You don't have to say, is everything okay at home, or who is coming? Is someone hurting you? That will make them more afraid. But just say, is everything okay? I noticed that you get really fearful now, and you didn't used to. You used to like to answer questions in class, but now you're shying away from it. Is someone bullying you? You could start there. And maybe they'll open up to you.
And there are trainings for us. That's the second half of the question was equipping, especially with vulnerable children, with little children. Okay.
I'll give you my contact information, and I will connect you, but they're free too.
Great. Okay, good. The more we can understand.
We also have Children's Cove, and they are representative today in the audience. And Children's Cove is the local CAC. They have a ton of information on their website. It's all free. And they're also available just to have those conversations. So you can call and you can just have that conversation, and they can point you in the right direction to have those kind of difficult interactions. And there's age-appropriate resources too, because the conversations maybe that you'll have with a 6-year-old is going to be different than a 16-year-old. And they're a great local resource.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
This information will be available on our website as well, changingtheworldtv.org, changingtheworldtv.org. We'll put it out there. And as we wrap up, do you have any comments, remarks as we wrap up this session?
Thank you for being here.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you for hosting this.
Yeah. A couple things I would like to add. There are more humans trapped in slavery today than any other time in history, including when slavery was legal. Another statistic, human trafficking is a $150 billion a year business. The United States is one of the top destinations for human trafficking and is among the largest consumers of child sex. So that's the statistics, and there are a lot of movies out there. You can look up Sound of Freedom. There's also movies that you shared, and also I made a movie, it's called Human Trafficking in the Former Soviet Union, specifically created to reach young students, foreign students, who are vulnerable and looking for opportunities in the United States. Human Trafficking in the Former Soviet Union. If you look up, you can find it. Thank you again for being here. You're free to meet our wonderful panel and our speaker tonight. And again, thank you for caring, for listening ears. And we will post more events in the future. changingtheworldtv.org recorded this event. You can watch it and you can share it with your friends, with your community, with your church. And next event will be on on February 29th, mental health awareness panel as well. So you're welcome to come and register online ahead of time. Thank you so much for being here. Let's give a hand to our wonderful panel. Thank you. Thank you. I have a gift for you, for all of you. Oh, you gave me one. Thank you. Could you put on the music? I have a gift. Yes, Thank you so much. Don't want to break it. I have a gift for you, so don't go away.
Okay. We're just going to do a quick photo.